my dear friend Myo-O, Habermas-Scher, who will be giving the talk today. Myo-O practiced here with Katagiri from 1975 to 1990, so he's been doing Zen for a little while, and received, along with a lifetime of practice in Zen and Vipassana Buddhism, received Dharma transmission as a Soto Zen teacher from Dokai Jorchen in 2012. Myo-O is very involved in the arts, both the movement of the body and singing, providing voice works training, Qigong, Tai Chi. I can certainly remember being really happy to be chanting with you many times. You were the Doan. I had a long career as a chaplain, in the hospital chaplain, as the guiding teacher of Dharma Dance Sangha. And it's just a dear friend, you know, one of the real inspirations for me when I first came to practice. I thought, I think I want to do that. And I'm lucky because I'm doing it. And all these many years, just seeing the many ways you bring your practice to community and to life, it's a great inspiration. It's very sweet to be here with you.
With the switch. Oh, right, see?
All right, it's on. All right, now,
Oh, thank you.
no, now we can hear. I can hear me too. Oh my, what a week we've had. So just sitting with that. I'm going to start with a poem by David White. It's called Self-Portrait. It doesn't interest me if there is one God or many gods. I want to know if you belong or feel abandoned. If you can know despair or see it in others. I want to know if you are prepared to live in the world with its harsh need to change you. If you can look back with a firm eye saying, this is where I stand. I want to know if you know how to melt into that fierce heat of living, falling toward the center of your longing. I want to know if you are willing to live day by day with the consequence of love and the bitter, unwanted passion of your sure defeat. I have heard in that fierce embrace, even the gods speak of God. Oops. So here is Bidemakaska, White Earth Lake. When I walk around her, or bike around her, I imagine her before we non-Indigenous people came here. How were the trees? Did they go straight down to the shore? Where were the best places to make camp? And in this last week, Bidemakaska has been under siege in a new way. A young man whose lineage here goes back 10,000 years was snatched away from his aunt as an illegal immigrant. Hideous ignorance, I'm just going to say it, hideous ignorance and absurdity led to the murder of Renee Nicole Good in our city. May her memory be for a blessing. At moments, my heart is just so heavy. And at other moments, like on Friday night, when my neighbors gathered to decompress from another day from hell, where ICE was on our very particular streets not far from here, there was laughter, and there were stories, and connection, and mutual acceptance. Good medicine. It's actually taken a few days for my system to be able to face into the fact that this is really happening in the city where I take refuge. And so much is happening all over the world that is dreadful. It's so easy to jump into separation, blame, and divisiveness. It's so easy, but it feels so terrible. That's what I notice. I remember a Dharma talk that Katagiri Roshi gave in the 1970s just across the hall. I don't remember what the talk was about exactly, but at some point in that evening, he said this shocking thing. He said, "We're all Nazis." Well, that blew my 26-year-old mind away. That is not what I grew up hearing. What if I said, we're all ICE? So our practice calls us to just such a koan as this. How do we practice now? Now. In our spiritual lives, how do we approach this day, this week, this month? Where do we take refuge? And I would say, take refuge over and over and over and over. How does our spiritual life support our deep understanding of our world and our moment-to-moment responses to it? I feel that turning toward our spirit and its training is not optional in such times as these. It's necessary. And what does that mean for us? And how the heck do we do it? In the last 2 years, when I sit down to meditate, I most often pause to align myself with karuna, which means compassion in Pali. I find that this becomes a kind of wise protection against my mind falling into the pit of identifying with my reactivity. And believe me, I have reactivity. I've been known to yell in my car, to throw wooden spoons across the kitchen while yelling. And speaking of protection, I want to say that I'm wearing my okesa this morning. When I come here, usually I don't, but I feel like I need the protection of my vows. So it makes me feel a little cozy to wear it. So once my mind has fallen into the pit, any creativity or wisdom that might come to me in relation to circumstances gets waylaid. I become tangled up in my suffering and retreat to argument and separation. And what I notice, maybe it's just because I'm old now, I just don't have the energy for that. it's exhausting, and my energy is more limited. So where do I want to put my energy? And also, I suffer more when I'm there. And I know that because I've tried it thousands of times with no good result. So a good result would mean to me that I feel connected to my deepest values and to the large situation I and we find ourselves in. It would also mean that I could make a wise choice about what action I might take in response to conditions. So today, let's consider what our spiritual path offers us as help towards defining and owning our deepest values. Let's start there. What are they? I mean, I can't name your deepest values. That's for each of us to get in touch with. And then what spiritual technologies might we practice in order to help us understand and embody those values? So in my case, my technology is meditation. So that's what I know how to do. So I want to talk about compassion practice. The aim of compassion practice is to turn our capacity to love and care unconditionally, specifically towards suffering in ourselves and others. Also, we wish to connect with our courage to open and to care genuinely for the alleviation of suffering. This is done without getting overwhelmed with suffering, and instead of getting overwhelmed, we incline the mind toward feeling the strength of our courage and our care. So we often call compassion the quivering of the heart. When we see deeply into the context and components of a situation, quite often judgment ceases, and we see connection and we feel compassion. We need to consider the human condition on every level, historically, personally, socially, politically. And as I wrote that, I realized that I heard Katagiri Roshi say this all the time, only please don't get mad at me, but this is what I hear in my head. He said, historically, personally, socially, and politically. So that's what I hear. I hear his voice. And it's very comforting to me. Last week, now this is just a personal story, right? This is just me and my little life. Last August, I spent a week near Two Harbors with in what my 4-year-old grandson calls an errand bed, with my 2 little grandsons and my daughter and her partner. For whatever reason, my daughter-in-law treated me in ways that I found extremely difficult to deal with. I'm sure I'm not alone in having had such an experience. I kept looking for a moment in which I could address what was happening with her, but I couldn't find that moment. The day I drove back to Minneapolis by myself, I noticed my awareness being present with many painful feelings, so great opportunity for freedom somewhere in there. After a few hours, I reflected that no one behaves like that unless they are carrying trauma. Nothing to do with me. To my amazement, I actually felt some compassion arise in my heart. The felt sense of compassion helped my nervous system to relax, which felt healing for me, as well as wise for the situation. This week, with the tiny bits of choice that I had available to me given our circumstances, I reflected slightly on the ice people who are behaving in ways that I consider completely abhorrent. I could imagine a little bit what it might feel like inside them as they acted in these ways. And again, I noticed that there was a little teeny weeny tiny space to understand the toxicity that they were both carrying and engendering. I felt a couple of drops of compassion arise. So does this mean that it's all okay? Hell no, not okay. I don't condone what's happening in any way. Only that, in terms of my own deepest values and my vows, it made a little space for me to consider what would be an appropriate action at this moment, whatever moment that was. One moment at a time. Fortunately for us, there are some specific formal practices that we can do to help us learn the felt sense of compassion so that we recognize it. You know, it's a word. It's a finger pointing at the moon, right? But we know what it feels like when it actually is happening, yeah? So we need to literally cultivate it. Like if you're cooking and you taste it and then it needs a little lemon juice or something. So here are some phrases that we traditionally say to ourselves when we're practicing in a meditation format. We say, my heart is open to your suffering. So we're like inclining the mind. Maybe the heart's not at that moment. You know, so we don't fight with it. We just kind of say, look, just smell this. See, you know, like when my grandson says, no, I'm not going to eat that. Just smell it. My heart is open to your suffering. May your suffering cease. I care about this pain. May you be at ease. So we are not controlling the conditions, damn it. We are not, we can't. But we can do this. We hold a person in mind and repeat these phrases to ourselves. Usually, we start with someone for whom it's very easy to feel compassion, like a pet or a baby. If we feel up to it, we can even experiment with holding someone we love, or a stranger, or finally someone for whom it may be very challenging to feel compassion. So we literally are like building up our muscles, or if we play the piano, you know, we're strengthening our coordination. It's quite an actually powerful practice. One time I was leading a weekend retreat at Stillwater State Prison. And I taught a similar practice, it's loving kindness practice, metta, to the inmates. I told them that it was warrior practice and that it was something they could do for their families. Where am I? Whoops. From prison. It was so interesting because all of a sudden this energy of personal agency woke up in the room. I just remember this vividly. When they heard this, it was so heartening. So we did the practice, and they felt empowered. I could feel it, and their faces lit up. And then I said this thing about, you know, your family, someone you care about, someone you don't know. And then I said, if you're feeling really strong, you could try it on the guards. You know, they looked at me like, I don't know about that. Just to see what might happen, I said, as an experiment. So when we do practices like this, we're transforming our own relationship to suffering. We practice cultivating the compassionate heart. This means we set the intention to care for the suffering of ourselves and others rather than pushing it away. Setting the intention to care and be present for suffering, we can better offer love and support to anyone who is suffering. Furthermore, compassion helps us not to react so strongly with aversion to our own suffering. So you know when something's yucky, it's just natural. We go, yuck, right? And then quite often we just go down that yuck PhD thesis of yuck and why it's yucky and who's to blame for the yuckiness. So this is saying, oh, we stop right at the yuck and we turn this way. We don't deny it. We just turn this way. So through the small moments of being present for someone else and for ourselves in this way, by offering compassion, our own hearts can soften. When our hearts soften, our suffering diminishes. So now I'm going to quote a couple of famous people. One is Jesus. Whatever you do unto the least of these, so also you do unto me. And then the Dalai Lama. I love his quote. If you want others to be happy, practice compassion. If you want to be happy, practice compassion. There's a famous Zen story called The Compassionate One's True Eye, which was translated by Zen teachers Joan Sutherland of Northern California and John Tarrant, originally from Australia. Okay, here's the story. You ready? Yunyan asked Tao Wu, how does the Bodhisattva Kuan Yin use those many hands and eyes? You know, there's like thousands of arms and stuff. Have you seen those? Okay. Tao Wu answered, it is like someone in the middle of the night reaching behind her head for the pillow. Yunyan said, oh, I understand. Tao Wu asked, how do you understand it? Yunyan said, all over the body are hands and eyes. Tao Wu said, that is very well expressed, but it is only 8/10 of the answer. Yunyan said, how would you say it, elder brother? Tao Wu said, throughout the body are hands and eyes. So first of all, does everyone know what a bodhisattva is? Should I say what a bodhisattva is? Yes, okay. A bodhisattva is you. It's a being who vows to save all beings from suffering before they themselves cross over into nirvana. Kuan Yin is the feminine representation of the bodhisattva of compassion. Often she is called the goddess of compassion. She is compassion itself. So Tao Wu's final response dissolves any separation. Throughout the body are hands and eyes. So here the body itself is transformed. There is no one performing compassion. Compassion is simply moving freely, unimpeded. There is no distinction between seeing and acting, between self and other. It is not that we have hands and eyes. Rather, the body itself is hands and eyes. So I am sure that everyone in this room has had a moment like this. So this is a great moment here to kind of remember, oh yeah, I know that. One time I was up north, and I was at this, I call it the evil store, on Highway 61 near Tofty, called the Water's Edge. And the reason it's the evil store is because I like everything in that store. And when I go up north, I always buy myself a pair of earrings. I don't know, it's just my thing. So I went to the store and I was waiting to pay for the earrings, and there was a highly functioning Down syndrome young man who was wanting to buy this shirt. And he didn't have enough money. And, you know, he didn't get it quite right? And the clerk wanted to help him but didn't know what to do, right? Because he can't let him take the shirt without paying for it, but he wanted to. So I wasn't thinking, I just, out of my mouth came, oh, I can do that, you know. So I just took out the whatever the guy wasn't able to pay for. And it was just seamless. You know, it wasn't like, what should I, you know, it's just boop, like that. And what I noticed afterwards, there was so much happiness. Like, the young man actually wasn't surprised, because probably people help him, you know, his family and stuff. So it's like, okay, great. But the clerk was so relieved, you know. And then he wanted to do something. So he gave me 20% discount on my earrings, which, you know, I didn't care about. And then he told me about this secret place that I should go to, you know, with this fantastic view that nobody knows about or something like that, which I wrote down and it's still in my date book, just in case. So those moments that we've all had, I mean, the whole tone, the resonance in the space completely changes for nothing, you know? So reaching behind my head at night for a pillow when we're mostly asleep in bed and the body reaches for the pillow, there's no thought involved, right? It's spontaneous. There's no self-consciousness. There's just complete action. That's what we like to say in Zen. It sounds very, you know, but it's not intellectual. It's not deliberative. It's just natural responsiveness. Natural. You know the 4 Bodhisattva vows? Probably a lot of you have heard of them. I'm just going to talk about one. The first one, because basically the Bodhisattva vows are impossible. So the first one is, beings are numberless, I vow to save them. When I was in chaplaincy school, my chaplaincy teachers thought that was a big problem. Because they didn't understand what it really was about. But they thought that, you know, I was crazy, and I thought, well, I might be crazy, but, you know, that in Buddhism we think I am going to do it. So because these vows are impossible, we know that we are in a huge field, much bigger than our ordinary mind can even imagine. And there is no way we can figure this out. It's already a mystery. Here is what Joseph Goldstein, the wonderful, wonderful American Vipassana teacher, quotes from a Tibetan yogi named Shapkar. The mind's nature is vivid as a flawless piece of crystal, intrinsically empty, naturally radiant, ceaselessly responsive. The mind's nature, he doesn't say some big saint's nature, he says the mind's nature is like this. So this is the mind that the 2 monks in the Zen story are talking about. Maybe we think it's 1,000,000 miles away from where we are, but it's not 1,000,000 miles away. It's our true nature. It's our nature to compassionately move to free beings from suffering. When we are experiencing the social and political environment that we're waking up to each morning, on the one hand, it's hard to understand how to live out this natural, profound impulse to help each other, the earth and the animals, in face of what looks to be the exact opposite of that impulse. Yet, On the other hand, that impulse to help is natural and strong. It's wholesome and in alignment with the Bodhisattva vows. So like everyone here, I have been doing a lot of small things to try to make a wholesome contribution to our present situation. With my neighbors, I made 800 packets of whistles with a little card. We're protecting an asylum seeker in our neighborhood by driving him to work and home again every day. I'm sure you've been doing such things as well. Here is what Huang Po, you know, the tea ceremony guy, he did some other things besides the tea ceremony. He says, "Do not permit the events of your daily lives to bind you, but never withdraw yourselves from them." Should I say that again? Do not permit the events of your daily lives to bind you, but never withdraw yourselves from them. So this all brings us back to our own deepest values. On what basis do we meet the events of our daily lives? What guides us, and with what do we align? How deep do we encourage or allow that alignment to go? How do we train in that alignment? So, you know, we have to train in everything, right? The computer, the car, whatever we do, we have to train. So we also train spiritually. So I'll give you one more quote from Joseph. "The compassionate activity expressed by the Bodhisattva vow is the manifestation of the realization of emptiness. The energy to save all beings arises in precisely that consciousness that knows there is no one to save and no one doing the saving." No one to save and no one doing the saving. So where does the energy come from for such a task as is before us right now? I, just me, my little old self, does not have the energy needed for the task in the way I size it up. However, if the energy required is not precisely me in the narrow way I habitually think of me, and instead there is capacity that rises out of a consciousness that's free of obstructions, that is beyond this me, then what? What's possible then? What would that be like? If the only thing that arose in our mind were equanimity and a completely clear awareness of the meteor shower of life arising and falling away with no reactivity whatsoever, in an atmosphere of an unassailable compassion and love. It's just a possibility. It's a possibility. And I just say a lot, just don't know. You know why I say that? Because it keeps me from going like that. I know, and then I'm in trouble. But still I have to do something, right? So I'm going to end with this little tiny poem that Tomoe-san, Katagiri's widow, gave me probably a long time ago. It's tiny. It's by Tomohiro Hoshino. It's called An Everlasting Flower, which is a cottonweed flower. Because you are so frail, you are stepped on. But with your flexibility, you never snap off. When you fall down on the ground, take your time and look up to the sky for a little while. Then stand up again. Is there, am I supposed to be looking at a clock? Oh, there, where is it? Oh, thank you. I think I'm okay still. So what do you want to say?
I forgot to mention something. First, thank you very much. But the online audience can chime in, so you may just hear voices.
I do hear, no.
Those are people.
Yeah, okay, great. So, all beings everywhere, what would you like to say? Yes.
Thank you for the talk. That was spectacular. I remember you from the last time you were here, and I said hi to you afterwards because the last time you were here was wonderful too.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you. I had two things. First, just want to address the whistle.
Yeah.
I went down to the site on Friday morning. Actually, I came here first because I was wanting to sit, and I forgot that y'all don't sit on Friday mornings, so I sat by the lake. And then I went to the site, but at first I made myself this bag, this safety bag for myself to be able to go there and do that. And I included a whistle. Fortunately, it was safe there. There were reporters and police, and the police were keeping people safe out of the road. Later that day, I took the afternoon off from work because I was having a tough day. And I went to grab lunch at one of my favorite places to grab lunch, a safe space for me, Northeast, other co-op, East Side Co-op. And as I was going there, people in the street were blowing these whistles, and I'm a Boy Scout. And this whistle, I had this. I didn't need to go get a whistle. I didn't need to be given this. I had this. This is for when you're in the woods and you break your leg. And there's no one for miles. You can hear these for, I don't know. Ben may know. I know he is an outdoors person.
I have one.
Yeah. And people were blowing their whistles. And so I did what I thought was best. I immediately pulled over to the side of the road and put my hazards on because there was an emergency. And so I stopped and I sat there for a little bit and I just had to breathe. And then I rolled down my window and someone was blowing the whistle and I said, "What's going on?" And they said, "Ice is here." And I looked around and I said, "Where?" And they said, "Up there." I said, "Where?" "Oh, by Lowry and Central." This was like 18th and Central, so many blocks away. But this is right by where I was going, the co-op, East Side Co-op. And I had to decide what to do. And I didn't see anything up ahead, so I thought, okay, maybe it's okay. And I drove, kept driving, and there were the streets were lined with people.
Mm-hmm.
Protectors, I think, people who saw themselves as protectors. And they were blowing their whistles too. So the closer I got, the more whistles were blowing. And I was becoming scared, frightened, because I didn't know what was going on and I couldn't see what was going on. There were just people and whistles. And I drove to that space and I didn't see anything and I decided that it was safe to go in because I didn't see any ice. I thought it was safe to go in to eat my lunch. And I got my lunch and I sat down at the cafe there to eat it, and the whistles continued outside and it was a very difficult experience for me. I have PTSD. And so it was very scary. So one addition I made to my survival kit here is earplugs. And I've been carrying these, but they're attached to the outside so I can grab them quickly. And that's what I needed to do to protect myself. And I wanted people to know that. Because,
Katie, did you have a question?
Oh, thank you for your talk. It's really helpful to hear practical ways to apply meta, even in very difficult situations. And the story I'd heard before, but I didn't quite get it until now. And also I want to talk about the power of community and support when you're trying to find compassionate feelings. I was walking in my neighborhood yesterday and I heard what sounded like protest noise. So I went over to check it out and there were just like 70 neighbors standing on a busy street corner holding signs. And I stood there with them for a while and somebody handed me a sign and I held it and I chatted with neighbors. And I felt so much better than I had all day just being with people. So community can also really help with this compassion.
Thank you. Yes.
I like what you said about it being a felt sense. I like my kick in Buddhism has been about the body and about feeling it there. And I like when Dogen, he said like he had a hard time on the way until he got to the Sambhogakaya, the bliss body. And so like that's been like my true north star, you know. And so like when you said that, I'm like, yeah, compassion is like a relaxation of the body, you know. It's like relax inside when I actually it's a real compassion.
Right. Yeah. Thank you. Let me just look over this way because I didn't look over this way. Did anyone want to say anything? Yes.
It's something that you mentioned about, thank you for the talk, was so good, about understanding sometimes the feeling in others help us to create a space of compassion. Sometimes I've been having, as a Venezuelan, a lot of questions, a lot of unknown about what we feel as Venezuelans. So, for the place of not changing everyone's minds or not only changing the perspective of the feelings, like Venezuelans, at least me, my family, my friends, we're happy. Our hearts are happy and peace. It's turbulent time, yes. But our hearts are joy, or maybe hope, something brings to our heart. So when I share something with people that is having a very hard time understanding the whole situation, like thank you, Vanessa, for sharing, because it made me understand a little bit more of the whole spectrum of the situation, and have a little more compassion for the situation, understanding your feelings as a Venezuelan.
Yeah.
And maybe the persons at least that I don't have any clue.
Yeah.
You as a Venezuelan have the feeling.
Yeah.
So it's like that understanding of what is there, good, bad, or whatever, but understanding what is there in the other side, or what we call the other side, or we will call any side. That understanding gives a lot of room for compassion. So, thank you for that such powerful word as compassion is. And thank you everyone for creating that we win a safety space for all of us to come here in turbulent times, in safe times, but just come here and be safe.
Wow.
Thank you for all of us, because this is something that we collective carry on. Thank you.
Yes.
I moved to Minnesota from Texas in '93, and I was a teacher down there, and then when I moved up here, I became a special ed teacher up here. And I noticed I noticed two things right away. One was the teachers argued back to the administrators here because of unions. It was just more democratic. And another thing I noticed was that if we had a troubled student and we were having IEP meetings to work on the student, there was a whole lot more community input. And this just made me love Minnesota because it just felt like a more loving community. It's a more open-hearted kind of community. And I've lived here since then, and I've come to Minnesota. And then all this stuff with this going on now made me feel like they are making war on what I love about me. And it's caused me to feel this tremendous anger and enough to want to, all the things that anger brings, a desire to commit violence against them. So I really appreciate what you have said, and it just reminded me that yes, that they are suffering beings too, and that a more spiritually developed. I mean, I think what I just said, what I prefaced this with, is all true. They're making war on us, but at the same time, we can respond to that with compassion, and so I really appreciate that you brought that out and you reminded me of that.
Good morning, everybody. This is Ginkgo. For those of you who know me, I miss you all a lot. I wish I could have been there today, but I didn't feel like I wanted to go out and about just yet. I work in Northeast Minneapolis at a dual language school with babies that come to school scared. And this whole process has been really hard. It has been unknown. I never thought that I would experience anything like this in my whole life. And I'm sure I'm not alone in that feeling. And at the same time, last night I was having a conversation with my husband, who's also.
Speak up a little bit, please?
Oh, yeah. At the same time, I was having a conversation with my husband last night, who's also Buddhist, and we decided to chant the Metta Sutra together. And as I was chanting the Metta Sutra, I found myself with all of this anger that I've been, having stuck inside and kind of struggling with. And I felt it just kind of falling away. And I wanted to sort of grasp to it because it's the anger that makes me brave. But I wanted to thank you for saying that I don't have to necessarily be brave. I can just be compassionate. And that is enough. And that makes my heart feel like, okay, maybe not all the times that I need to, like, I can't be brave and on all the time, but I can for sure be compassionate. And that I appreciate you for that. Thank you.
Thank you. I want to say that compassion and courage, I feel like I'm talking to them. Compassion and courage, hi. Compassion and courage are linked. So your impulse is wonderful. Yeah. Yes.
Thank you so much. You mentioned in your talk about sensing personal agency arising when you're talking with the inmates. And I know we all know people outside of this space who, like us, might feel disempowered. How do we awaken that sense of personal agency?
So the question was, how do we awaken the sense of personal agency? And to me, that's like, okay, what is my value? What are my values? Can I be clear? Can I be really connected to them? And then I'm going to take an action that is linked to my values, like you were saying. It's linked to my values. So now I have agency. It might be this big, okay? It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. I saw on a video, the Isaiah is this huge clergy organization, and I saw their press conference. I wasn't there, but I saw it. And the last woman who spoke was one of the 6 bishops, Lutheran bishops in Minnesota, and she was hot. I mean, she was like, she blew me away. she was so connected to how her beliefs move in her, and her confidence was huge. And it wasn't me. It wasn't me. It was huge. And so she said, and we're hoping now. And I was like, whoa, you know, in front of my computer. I felt better. It was like good medicine, you know. I was like, yes, yes. So it's not like, I'm just doing a little compassion practice. You know, no, it's huge. So can I tell you a quick little story? Okay, good, I have 2 minutes, okay. So, Steven Spielberg made a film that was a documentary. I can't remember the name of the film, I'm sorry. But it was interviewing survivors of the Holocaust and their children. And, you know, it was just brilliant, of course, because it was just brilliantly done. And afterwards, my husband, who never cries, was crying. But to my shock, because, you know, Holocaust stories are very in my cells, so I always get triggered. But I wasn't crying because I had an insight I'd never had before. And this is what I want to leave you with. This is my version of hope now. Is the thing that's trying to be killed is not killable. It is not killable. So that insight just like blew my conditioning wide open. It's not killable. And that's what that bishop was saying. So that is refuge. Refuge in Buddha, Dharma, Sangha, compassion. That's refuge. It's courage. It's persistence. Yeah. I have to stop. I have been told. Thank you so much.
If you're interested in getting channels on Signal related to what's going on, you want to do license plate checks or things like that, feel free to reach to me and I can connect you right after this.
Can we share one more piece of information?
Yes.
That might,
I'm just going to say yes. I hope it's okay.
I promise it won't take more than 2 minutes.
Okay.
So yesterday I came, I'm very, very new to the center. I'm looking for Sangha, and I'm brand new to Buddhism too. But this place has been extremely welcoming. And I've been trying to do community response, rapid response as well. And came yesterday morning and paused my alerts. And I went to temple and it was wonderful. And as soon as I turned my alerts on, I found a Monarcha alert for 1 block north. And I never heard anything else, so I started patrolling. I patrolled up and down Lake Street, and I felt really disconnected because I saw other people patrolling, but I wasn't getting any alerts. And then I realized it was Signal. I was waiting for someone to reach out and tell me, where do I find the information to do something? I was reading a sign about how to treat immigrant families. It was beautiful. It was like posted on the pole, and somebody walked up behind me on the street, on Lake Street, and started reading it and taking a picture. And they just said, "Hey, were you at the abduction this morning?" And I realized they were talking about that alert that I missed because it was an hour old because I turned my alerts off. I said, "No, I wanted to go, but I was an hour late and I don't know what happened." And they shared with me that a family of 4 was taken from their home. ICE broke into the home, took a family of 4, and they all had legal, documented worker status. That was the information I was told just by a bystander on the street who was there. So I just wanted to share that story so people can know that it's here and it's happening and it's right in front of our eyes, but they're doing it so secretly. And so, but everybody who wants to, like they said, just talk to people, because you can't find it online. Just talk to people, and there are thousands, there are 20,000 people who've been trained so far in Minneapolis, as far as I know, to just show up and be eyes.
Thank you. Thank you.
I just want to follow that up.